Welcome, listeners, to www.ironradio.org, the website and podcast for all things strength sports and sports nutrition. Thanks for listening.
Good morning, everybody. It's another episode of Iron Radio. Post-Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. This is Phil Stevens. I am a strength coach, youth football coach, powerlifter, Highland Games athlete, and just all-around nice guy. Very thankful today.
My name is Dr. Mike T. Nelson, associate professor at the Carrigan Institute, creator of the Flex Diet and the PhysFlex certs, and still down here in South Padre, Texas. Hoping to get out and do a little kiteboarding today, but we'll see.
Cool. And this is Lonnie Lowry. I'm a former competitive bodybuilder, professor of a couple of decades now. I'm just losing track. And my Thanksgiving was a little weird because I can eat and I should eat because of this surgery I just had, but I can't poop.
Oh, God.
Because the Percocet.
That's the worst.
So I'm like,
I
can't overindulge. On one side, it's like, I need lots of calories and protein to heal. And on the other side, if I can't move it out, I'm tentative about even doing it, Anyway.
I feel for you. I've only had that happen. Of all my surgeries, that happened one time. And it was whatever they used to put me under. Because normally the pain pills didn't, but it's the worst.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I thought actually we could talk a little bit today about surgery, when to decide to go in there, like you said, Phil, and then what's the motivation and all that. Because what I don't have now is the motivation that I had back in the day, which was, I'm going to get small. Oh my God, I'm in this competing mindset. And I don't have that right now. No, don't get me wrong. It's not like, screw it. There's no sense in recovering. It's not like that. But the urgency is gone a little, Now, having said that, listeners should realize, and they probably do, you've got to eat. Now, calories and protein are king when you're repairing too, not just from athletic recovery, but from surgery. So I'm still focusing on that. I'm just trying to mix in as much, prunes and other stuff to keep it.
That was my biggest thing for people that get surgery is you always hear them, like, of course you have to shift goals. But the worst one is everybody always like, well, I can't do anything, so I'll just lose a bunch of weight.
Oh,
and it's like, that's the worst thing you can do. It's basically, like you said, you need those calories to repair. I mean, you just did a lot more damage than you would in any training session. And people know they generally will feed the machine after they train because they know they did damage. So why wouldn't you? And it's like, that can hold off, man. Give it a couple months.
Right.
So.
Yeah. I'm even thinking about, like, how do I go about this without, at least for this first week, without copious amounts of eating, because I feel like I can't do it. You know what I mean? Because it's not, it's just staying with me on board. It's so gross, I know. But so I'm thinking like, well, maybe some extra leucine. Maybe I can eat less protein if I spike my meals with leucine, or, some collagen, vitamin C, arginine, glutamine, anything you can think of that might help with some of this soft tissue repair. I'm just kind of going through the list of, supplements, I guess.
Yeah.
In your case, you're thinking about things that have low residue, like essential amino acids. Like you're actually trying not to get fiber.
Yeah.
They did push. They said, well, you need fiber as long as there's enough fluid. And it's like, that's okay. But I feel like it's in certain situations, and listeners probably realize this, but a lot of this it's the opiates. They just, they attach to receptors. In your GI tract, you're just, you end up not function right, down there. Having said that, though, I'll probably get in trouble for even saying this, but I'm only taking like half of what I'm supposed to because I can't stand it. Like, I'd rather just hurt 3 on a 10 scale instead of have no pain and no poop. It's just kind of crazy, I guess.
Are you in a walking boot or a cast for a while and crutches, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, it's the like L-shaped splint kind of deal with soft stuff all around it. So it's going to go from basically, cast or splint to boot. after 2 weeks because the reconstruction. And I don't want to bore listeners, but sometimes if they repair an old surgery, there's not enough to work with, and they had to use some cadaver ligament and stuff to really rebuild that stuff. Okay. I mean, usually I was just reading a paper, unsurprising, I guess. I got on PubMed. I'm looking at the outcome of a lot of these kinds of surgical techniques, and it's really good. I mean, it's really good. It's just you have to let your body rebuild. I was even like, why don't you reject cadaverous ligaments like allografts? Why isn't that a problem?
Yeah.
And apparently they just either through irradiation or from the freezing process of storing
everything.
Yeah, they kill everything. It's just a scaffold, and then you're really just needing it for the elastic components, as far as I understand it. Because obviously, if it came down to getting a piece of cadaver ligament, if I had to be on anti-rejection drugs and erase half my frickin' immune system, I've never done it. But it's super common, of course, and it's just the kind of stuff that I dug into. I thought, if listeners ever had this done, they might think, oh, yeah, that makes sense. It's, you're not going to, in all likelihood, reject it. But yeah, so Phil, let's talk a little bit about what you dealt with before, because it used to freak me out. You'd have surgery, get something reattached, and then you were back at it, like pretty aggressively. And it's cool when a doctor gives you some credit. Like, Phil knows what he's doing. I'm not going to.
Yeah, I was lucky in that my orthopedic surgeon knew me, and he just never assigned me PT. He's like, well, you know what you're doing. Do PT yourself. And
yeah.
And it's also changed. I mean, PT has changed in the last 15 years. They're in general a ton more aggressive. They want you up moving as quickly as you can. And it's just doing something that's not stupid. Like for me, and it was most of my injuries were deeply entrenched within my competitive stage. So I was super driven. And so like my first two were both my biceps. So it's just like, okay, you're upset for a day, but then it's like, okay, what can I do? And instead of focusing on what you can't do, which is anything with that arm, it's just figuring things out. You've got 3/4 of the rest of your body. Like, let's figure out ways to attack that without stressing this spot at all. And then, and just any pain. Like my cue for not doing anything was like a 1. If there's a 1 in that area that was just surgically repaired, like, okay, don't do that for a while. So, but that's what led me to, like, the reason I bought a safety squat bar was because I blew my first bicep. And I was like, okay, I need to squat. Oh. So how do I do that? And like with the safety squat bar, you can squat with one hand or no hands. I just let both my hands hang down to the side because one of them's in a cast and just squat, or do good mornings. I could do all that type of stuff. That's what had me break that stupid. There was a guy, another competing gym here in town, and dude deadlifted like 455 or something like that, and put up an obnoxious video. So I like put on 465 and did it with one hand, and put up an obnoxious video. So things like that. You just find ways to keep motivated, and I would deadlift with one hand and things like that. I just figured out, like I said, it was me figuring out, okay, what can I do? I can't use that arm. There's plenty I can do. And when it came around to lower body injuries later, it was the opposite way. Well, okay, time to bench and row and things like that. But
admittedly, when it's your foot, it's hard.
Yeah, you're stuck. Yeah.
However, I mean, Kelly went down and got me just a dumbbell, and I'm sitting here on the couch just like, lounging while I'm curling or doing some overhead pressing and stuff.
Yeah.
Because I do think you got to get some blood flow. I mean, I'm at that really early stage where, I mean, my ankle was just completely taken apart like a Thanksgiving turkey, a couple of days ago. But I feel like I need to start moving now. You just get so stagnant. But even upper body stuff. Mike, I wanted to ask you actually, and listeners might be interested, where are we with like contralateral stimulation? Like if I try to work my opposing calf and ankle, is that going to be worthwhile in your opinion?
I think so, yeah. So for for clients I have, like, is it your right ankle, Lonnie, or left?
It's my right one that got repaired.
Yeah, I spiraled my right ankle in 2005 in a snowboarding incident and had the old walking cast and all that fun stuff for 3 months, whatever. But yeah, so with that, I would say work the opposite side. So do as much as you can on your left side, lower body. Right, for listeners, it's something called the cross education effect, and they found this by trying to do studies where the thought was, okay, well, let's just exercise one side of the body and we'll do an intervention here and compare it to the other side. And they realized that the side that didn't get trained at all got stronger above baseline, even though they didn't do anything with it. And so there is it's probably a neurologic mechanism where your body is trying to keep some semblance of balance. It generally seems to apply more for strength than hypertrophy per se. Mm-hmm. But I figure either way, it's going to be a benefit. How much of that is going to affect it? Who knows? But like Phil said, you would want to exercise the quote unquote, functional side of your body anyway. And then I'd also even go as far as to do it as like a cross education. So if you think about how your body is wired for gait, your left arm is kind of tied to your right leg, right? So it's opposite side. Like I tell clients, imagine like you're a big giant X. And so I would even have them do things in a gait position, even though they can't move in your case, your right ankle. So maybe have your right ankle kind of behind you, propped up on your knee, so there's no pain or anything. And then do your left arm out in front of you, like a left bicep curl, hammer curl, shoulder extension, flexion, that type of thing. Mm-hmm. The thought there is that you're trying to work something in a gait pattern. So again, you're trying to not lose as much strength as you can. People can look up something called interlimb neural coupling, and there's a bunch of crazy stuff with that. And you're going to want to exercise upper body anyway. So, and I think, heavy bilateral stuff, if you can get in a position to do it, is good. A lot of times you can't stabilize quite as well. And I've even split the upper body, have them do more specific stuff on their left versus their right. My preference is to do some version unilateral and even from like a gait stance if they can.
Yeah. I'm going to give it a go. My problem is right now, like the stairs to get down to my basement so I can lift, so I can get even lay down. Yeah. But, I think there's an element of just patience there too. It's like nobody's going to fall apart in the next 10 days. I'll dabble around with my dumbbell on the couch or something. And it's not driven by that motivation though. Like I'm going to lose a half an inch on my arms, or something like that. And my God, it'll take me months to get back to that. And that's not really there. So all I'm focusing on right now is, dabble with the dumbbell, a little bit of, keep the protein up. Honestly, I think for listeners, there's all kinds of guidelines out there. And, post-surgery, they give you those ERAS guidelines and everything. A lot of them I feel like are common sense to enhance your recovery. But I would do something very similar with protein and stuff like Mike and I have sort of come around to over the years, which is eat 40 grams of protein 4 or 5 times a day. That's a lot, Yeah. It's already a lot. And then, find a way to keep the calories coming and that kind of stuff. And don't worry too much about anything other than just the anabolic processes. And like Mike was saying, don't completely lose neural patterns in the process.
Oh, and just in realizing that, if you gain 5 pounds, like you're going to lose that right when you're able to locomote yourself again.
Oh, yeah.
It's just don't panic over that stuff. It's like, of course you're gaining pounds. You can't walk. That's a huge change in life. But and then just being, like I said, the neat thing now is it's being a bit aggressive with your recovery, but not stupid. And just realization that they want you moving things is just listen to your doctor. They're going to tell you, like, okay, you get to work up to the 5-pound dumbbell now. Move that thing around. Like, it's changing your mindset. Like with my hip, it was all about, okay, well, number one goal, gain mobility back. So I just shifted my mindset to that. It was not about weight. It was not about anything like that. It was learn to walk correctly again. switch my gait, and just get mobility back. So I'd spend hours on a little bicycle, and I just jack the seat up as high as it'd go, and over time, slowly lower the seat to where, look, okay, I can get to 90 degrees with no hitch, no pain.
More range of motion.
So, and just things like that is just coming back, and you're looking to, your goal goes from competitive stuff to, let's see if I can get to normal again. You know?
Yeah, make a game out of it almost, compete against Mother Nature. I got to say, yes, locomotion is a big deal because I'm on crutches and that sucks. I can't carry a coffee, right? Like,
Yep.
I asked Kelly to buy me some knee pads so I can crawl to the bathroom if I have to.
Crawled up and down the stairs in my house. Yeah, good times.
Stairs, yep. But I was actually going to bring up the fact that you and Mike have both dealt with hip. What joint do you think would be the most disruptive? I can't imagine. Like, hip is so central,
Yeah, my hamstring was my worst, but that involved the hip.
Exactly. That's what I meant. Yeah, the origin of the hamstring.
That's because with my hip replacement, the minute I woke up, like, it seemed like I just woke up, which, whatever, I probably didn't because I had me on high amounts of drugs. But it was shortly after the surgery. They're like, okay, getting you out of bed. It's time to move. Whereas with my hamstring, it was, nope, we're locking you down for weeks. And I had a brace that I wore up above my belly button. It strapped around me. And then it went down, big metal bar that went down my leg and then wrapped around my femur. And I was locked. You know? So I could be laying down or standing up. That's it. And that was for weeks. And that was the worst. Because you don't realize just how, like, in everyday life, how much you need to bend at the hip.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's got to be literally paralyzing.
Yeah, and sadly, that was the surgery that I got backed up like you are right now. So I can't bend at the hip, and I'm got opiates that are clogging me up. Oh, God.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, that was by far the worst. Like, my shoulders are a pain in the butt, whatever. But, I mean, you can deal with that. I got another arm. I can reach above my head and get it with that. Like, not being able to walk, not being able to sit in a car correctly and drive. Like, I had to get in cars and lay down.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
gosh.
Things like that. So, it's just, that was by far the worst.
No,
that's the surgery I don't wish on anybody.
No doubt. Because I know, Mike, you were very screwed up with, was it your adductors or something? You had something that you couldn't even, like, roll around in bed without excruciating.
No, I've done all sorts of horrible stuff to myself, like snowboarding, twisted my right ankle and broke a bunch of tissue in it, dislocated my right shoulder completely, separated left shoulder, hamstring, blah, 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 wrist. Mm-hmm. But the worst one was actually being an idiot at the gym. My hips have been tight and chronically tight all the time, and you figure, you're just fine, warm up, whatever. And for some reason at the gym, I decided to do high speed, high incline treadmill sprints at the end of a deadlift session.
Oh, boy.
And yeah, you can see where this is going. Mm-hmm. And I got done. I was like, man, something feels off. Whatever. I go home. And like a half hour later, I'm like, man, my adductors and everything is just really sore already. This is weird. I'm like, it'll be fine. Wake up like at 3 a.m. going, oh my God, what the hell happened? And I had severely strained both my adductors and my hip flexors. Because you think about the treadmill is literally ripping your leg into extension. And so I basically moved like a geriatric penguin with a pole stuck up its ass. Like, I couldn't lift my legs. I could shuffle like an extremely, like a sumo stance, walking around, like the worst powerlifting gait you've ever seen, like times 10. Like, I could barely walk. I couldn't get into a car. I couldn't drive because I was afraid I could not pick my leg up fast from the accelerator to the brake. I didn't trust myself to do that because I would hesitate because it was so painful. To get into a car, I had to go ass first and just collapse into the seat and then take my arms and move my legs and yell at the same time.
Yeah.
But then you realize, like, stupid stuff, like at night, how many times you roll over at night. And a shocker, like, you use those muscles to stabilize your pelvis as you roll over. So I would grab the sheets from underneath me and then just grit my teeth and rip the sheets out underneath so that my hip would fall the other direction. Yeah, that was the worst one, I think, by far. And then I was feeling better, went back into the doc. He's like, there's nothing you can really do. You didn't rip it off the bone, so whatever.
Right.
And I remember having the 4th of July celebration. I was at a friend's place, and I could just barely start to get around again. And I caught part of my leg on a coffee table, which normally would have been like no big deal at all. And that set me back like 4 weeks. I was so pissed. I was like, I just
that sucks.
Ripped all the stuff that had just started to heal.
Yeah. It's just
that whole mobility thing. Like you forget like how much all of those things stabilize your pelvis. Like you can't pressurize it all. Like your torso movement hurts. Like your lower body movement hurts. That was the worst one.
It's a good weekend to be grateful, and that's the kind of stuff that
Yeah.
I'm looking at like kids running around and standing on a rock with their ankle like at an angle, and I'm like jealous.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, you're so stable, you little shit. Yeah. But like you said, all these little things you don't even think about, like how your adductors or some of these muscles that are stabilizers, or they just serve you silently day in and day out, and you take them for granted.
Yeah, the sleep was the worst one because it took me, God, I don't know how many weeks or months to just sleep through the night once. That part was the worst. The walking sucked because you'd see someone walk by with a normal gait pattern, and you're like, oh, look at that.
I know, right? Exactly. Jealous.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was the deal with the opiates with me, was sleep. Like I could deal with my hip and everything before I had it replaced. Whatever, it's pain. I'll deal with it during the day. It was trying to sleep.
Yeah.
That point of the day where you can't ignore it.
Oh,
like during the day, you've got stuff going on. Like, I'll just concentrate on this.
Movement.
And then you're laying in bed, and a 4 on the pain scale turns into a 20 because there's nothing else on your mind. And that was the hard part. But
and
I was just gonna say, as far as like when did you go to the doctor? When did you realize, okay, I got to do this?
Well, for me, this is it's classic that, and you guys know this, but like something like 85% of these ankle injuries are these inversion type. You just roll your ankle, and this is an old repair, and old repairs don't last forever. So I'm here to tell younger listeners, enjoy it. You might get 20, you might get 30 years. Hell, you might get a whole lifespan out of it. But for me, it was just, I was driven back. I once had a physician say, your symptoms, signs and symptoms will drive you back to me, so don't really worry about it too much. And that's kind of 3 big blowouts with my ankle turning black and blue in a month. I'm like, you know what? I'm done here. Like, I know this old repair has seen its day. Because, when you do that, you stretch out those ligaments, and obviously I was tearing them because otherwise I wouldn't have been turning black and blue like I was.
Yeah.
And that's why, I made that hard decision. But what was the other option? Not to be able to even go on hikes with my wife.
Yeah.
No, that's not okay. If I can do something about it. So, that's kind of the thing, is the frustration level. I did want to say one thing about when you mentioned sleep, though, Phil, too. It's not like I was in pain at night before this happened. In fact, I wasn't in pain at all until I rolled it. And then, like, to your point, I'd go from 0 to 1 on a 10 scale to 10, 10, 10, 10. Oh my God, 10. Swearing on my back, holding my ankle. But it's the lack of sleep when you're recovering. You're right. It's an extra challenge because it kind of wears you down. You just think, if I could only get a good night's sleep, I could then be more active the next day and get after this. I guess it just calls for some fortitude.
Yeah.
It's difficult.
No, it definitely does. And, my big deal I just dealt with this with another client, and like, I don't know why it is, but nobody wants to go see a doctor. Like, they'll go if they have a cold or some shit, but like, if something hurts and you're into, lifting, that'll be fine. And it's like my big deal. It's like with my hip first started going bad, we didn't know what it was, thought it was just maybe I did something in that training session. Let it cool down. Okay, let's try yoga. Let's try this. Oh, the yoga thing was the worst. Because we had no clue that my hip was just bone on bone. So then
Oh.
they got me trying yoga, and I'm like, this really fucking hurts. You're having me hold these poses, and I'm like, this is supposed to be good,
Right.
and, that just inflamed things more. But I mean, what I'm trying to get at is like, so I finally went to the orthopedic and got X-rays done, and like, oh yeah, you're bone on bone. Now, the choice then was, what he told me was, okay, I need you to hold off as long as you can. But the good thing was, is then I knew, like, it's the not knowing what the hell you're dealing with. And that's, I just dealt this with another client. Like, he was in pain for months, and I'm like, dude, you need to go see the doctor. Yeah, we can just keep working around this. You need to go see the doctor. And it's for no other reason than, like, even if it's not a fix, at least now we know what you're dealing with.
Yep.
And if you have that final answer, like with my hip, it was like, okay, my choice was deal with the pain until I make that decision. You know, but at least I knew, because even the doctor was just blatant. He's like, your hip needs replaced. You can't, like, double make it need replaced.
Yeah, you're not going to make it worse.
You're not going to make it, like, it's
know.
as bad as it's going to get. So, and that's one of the worries in my head. Like, am I making this worse by training? And now I knew, well, I'm not. You know, it's just where it is. You know, so, but at least we know, you have an idea. You have an educated opinion on what you're dealing with. So now you know, okay, just push through it or go get it fixed. But at least you know that I'm not doing more irreparable damage. Like, could that have been something that I could have just taken 4 weeks off and been fine? We don't know until you go in. So that's my big push, is always to get people to at least go get it looked at, man. And then we know for sure what we're dealing with. So
it's like what we were talking a few weeks ago. Even if that means imaging, I know that's expensive for a lot of people. Not everybody has equal health care. I get it. But getting either palpation or imaging or some type of professional opinion, it's a good point. You said, like, if you're imagining a graph and the line is going downward from left to right, you're on a decline, and that's going to happen regardless of what you do. And the end point is surgery. Then what are you really worried about? It's going to happen anyway. I'm not saying anybody should be reckless, but your mindset changes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Yeah, and that's like mine. After that, it was like, okay, I know what's wrong. I'll just deal with the pain. And I did for like 8 years. And then it got to the point where it was like, okay, can't sleep, can't do this. Like, daily life was messed up.
Right.
And it was like, okay, time to go.
Yeah.
And now I know too. I mean, I had that done. God, it's been 8 years now.
Oh.
So basically I have 8 to 10 years left. And I got to do it again. You know?
Yeah, you may have to.
Roughly, because he told me, I mean, basically he said it was a 25-year hip when I got it, and he'd be upset if it didn't last somebody like me 15 years.
Mm-hmm. So. You know, that's something that age changes. Like when I bought appliances, kitchen appliances and stuff, when we moved into our first house, my mom's like, oh, that'll last, that's a Kenmore, that'll last for 20 years, 30 years. Or, you put in a floor, oh, this is a 15-year guarantee. And when you're young, you're like, well, that's, for all intents and purposes, that's infinite. That's just always going to be there.
Yeah.
But as you get older, like now, that fridge that I bought for my house, it's still working and it's fine, but not for much longer, I imagine. Like I've actually spent that 20 years, you know. And so, you do have to think about those sorts of longevity and, how much warranty do you get? Because you will spend that time.
Yeah, but then there's that tricky deal where, okay, I could have 15 years of doing the stuff I love, or I could have the mindset of I'm going to make this replacement last as long as I can and not do shit for 25.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
There's no doubt. I think lifters make that decision with all kinds of things. Like, you have said it many times, Phil. It's health. Optimal health and longevity is not part of a lot of what you do in the muscle sports.
And for me, do I do some things and I'm not going to lie. I mean, when the doctor told me like the 2 things he didn't want me doing was running and jumping, I'm like, oh, I could not do that. I'm okay with that. I don't like running. And, basically he flat out told me, he said, the only time I want you running is if you're in a building that's on fire. It's like, okay, deal.
Right.
And, plenty of other things I can do. But at the same time, it's like, I didn't want to be 40 years old with a newborn child and be like, sorry, buddy, I can't play football with you.
Yeah.
You know, it's no. I mean, and that's what I gave myself right when it happened. Like, I will push it still through this first one. And, you know, if I'm lucky, he'll be 18, 19 years old. Get the second one. Now I can slow down and worry more about longevity. Not that I won't push it still and still be active, but not to the extent. I'm not going to squat 770 pounds on my second fake hip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, Phil, it's a good point about like aggression. People are, including therapists, they're more aggressive now, but within reason, right? Not like not doing a 600-pound deadlift with one hand because you're pissed off at some local schmuck.
And I'm 100% sure. Like, my doctor told me I can do whatever I want, lift, all that stuff. I'm sure he was not thinking about me squatting 770 pounds.
Right.
But I wasn't gonna get that clarified. Once he told me I can lift, it's like, okay, he said I can lift. You know.
Keep it vague.
So, yep. So he never told me I couldn't squat 770 pounds. So.
Yeah, and a side note about when you're talking about imaging and people going in, because I know a lot of people don't have insurance, or, you know, we have insurance, but it's only major medical just in case something catastrophic happens, because insurance is just ridiculously expensive. But there are sometime in most major cities now, like imaging centers, and all they do is imaging, like MRI, CT, etc. And many times you can call them and tell them you're going to pay cash, and they may have a different price listed. And in a couple of cases I've had with clients recently, it was literally almost half the price of getting a referral from their physician. In one case, to literally almost the exact same place. So that may be something to check into also, and just, you know, go to your doc and say, hey, if I, you know, have an imaging done at this place, can you make sure it's the, you know, what you need to see? It's, you know, whatever specifications. And they're like, yep, you know, take this with you. That may be, you know, sometimes can save you, in one case, it saved, you know, the person $600 for literally the same outcome.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yes. That's happened to us as well. My wife and I both, like, an insurance company actually called at one point and said, if you don't go to where your doctor originally said, and if you go to this imaging center, here's the price. And it was half. Now, I think it was less than half. Now, I don't believe for 1 second. I tend to look at health insurance as criminal middlemen between you and your doctor. And I don't think for a second he's trying to save me money, like he was saying.
Oh, no.
It's like you're trying to save your own self money. You know. But that is a good tip.
On that same token, I mean, if you have insurance like I had, like Mike has, which is catastrophic insurance or whatever, let's say you have a $10,000 deductible. Basically, it's in case you get hit by a Mack truck and you need millions of dollars worth of work. Like when I had my hamstring reattached, I went and got the consult, and they're like, oh, that's a $35,000 surgery, but you have a $10,000 deductible, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, well, what happens if I pay cash? And it was like $8,500 if I pay cash. I was like, why the hell would I use my insurance? Like, if I just pay you, I'm paying $1,500 less. You know? And that's always something I urge people to look into. See what the cash pay is. Like, what happens if I just pay you cash? And they allowed me to do that. I was like, I'll just buy it. Why burn up? Like, I'm just paying the insurance company $1,500 extra dollar.
That's a lesson on life in general. If you can finance all of it up front, never go through all, you know, not pay for it up front. Don't go through it and end up paying all those, because they're what my mom calls fees. Like, you pay a fee so you can pay your fee plan. And it's just preposterous, the additional expenses.
You add on that $10,000 deductible paying plus the monthly fees. It's like, what the hell am I buying it for? You know? Oh my God. So,
I mean, obviously not everybody just has the cash up front, but if you can, you could literally cut your costs by a third or more. It's crazy.
Well, that gets into the whole even medical tourism and stuff. Like, I know several people that go down to Costa Rica for work done, even certain places in Mexico. And obviously you have to be extremely careful and know what you're doing. And usually these are kind of more optional procedures in a lot of cases. But, you know, in some places it's, you know, doctors who are legitimately trained. It's pretty top notch. I would say you 100% have to do your homework on that because they also don't have the same regulations you may be used to in the U.S. But a lot of times it can be substantially cheaper too.
Oh yeah.
Well, like you said, most of them are Western trained.
A lot of them are,
yeah.
A lot of them
and
are from the U.S.
They go back home, or yes. That's like
they're trained in the U.S. Go back home. Yeah.
Yeah, I had a great conversation like Ed Cohen. He went down to South America for his stem cell stuff.
Yep.
And it was like they would do what they won't do here. And
did he?
You know,
okay.
Yeah.
And so he had a bunch of stem cell stuff down there, and to fix things. But
Right on. Hey, before we close out today, everybody, because this is obviously a shorter episode, we got a comment. I just wanted to. It's just relevant, so. This is something from Anthony on our YouTube backup. If anybody's interested, you can check out the Iron Radio YouTube backup. He said, because there was a comment, Phil and I were talking about 15 years of broadcasting in the Iron Game and stuff, and he said, us listeners have aged too. He said, when I started listening, I was a high schooler listening to some guys with more experience than me talking about exercise and nutrition. A dozen or so years later, and I'm no longer a high schooler. Hell yeah, Anthony, you're in your 30s.
Yeah.
I'm still listening to some guys with more experience talking about exercise. Topics may change as your interests change, but you are the folks that we respect and appreciate hearing from. Keep it up. So I just thought that was nice.
That was nice.
That was very nice.
Yeah, that was cool. All right, well, I'm going to try to get back to some protein here. And
yeah.
I'm going to go burn off some pies and cakes and stuff. So go in the gym and squat.
Nice.
Yes.
Fueled by Thanksgiving food.
Right on.
Turkey
All
squats.
right, guys. Well, until
Sounds good. See.
Iron Radio is accepting donations. If you like what we do, the professors, the scientists, the bodybuilding show promoters, the athletes themselves in powerlifting and bodybuilding, please consider making a donation or maybe buying something from the ironradio.org store. We also are accepting supporting members. So for $4 a month, which is frankly less than the bank sneaks out of your account in fees, you can step up and support a form of sort of public radio for the bodybuilding and powerlifting and strength community. The Iron Radio podcast and all of the audio on ironradio.org is for informational purposes only. If you're interested in starting a diet or exercise program, it's important to check with your physician. Also seek the help of registered dietitians, athletic trainers, and qualified exercise physiologists in order to make the progress that you need.